Take this thing apart so that I can, pull out the safety pin here that I have what I'll call my rocket fuel, and that rocket fuel is going to come out this back end and give me a little thrust. So without explaining the physics, because that's what we're going to get to on Wednesday, let me just kind of demonstrate here. And so 1, 2, 3. Oh! And so it's kind of fun to see that in action. So more on that. In fact, I noticed it's kind of low. So between now and Wednesday, I'll get that filled up, and we'll have some more here. All right. What else is worth showing you? How about we talk about energy, work and energy. Excuse me. One of the things we will deal with here is energy, and I thought, well, this will be a good one. How about I do this, and just so the lighting looks a little nicer, why don't I mute the lights here and maybe the lights here even.
Oops.
Oh,
room lights go on.
that's a little too much.
Oops, wrong ones. Other ones.
Okay.
There we go.
And we're going to be talking about energy, so I went ahead and I filled up these balloons with hydrogen. And so it's kind of fun to see what would happen if we released that energy. So again, without getting into the physics too much, let me go ahead and just burn the hydrogen. And so I'll take a little match, and I will stand back a little ways. Oh, hang on, my match is going out. Okay, there we go. And so let me just put the match under the balloon. Oh! And I wish you guys could be in the room for that, because that is one of the fun ones to do at the beginning. And so we'll do it again when we get towards work and energy. But like I said, that's kind of a fun one to show you. Let me turn on the overhead back on here. What was another area we're going to get to? Oh, sound. Sound, I'll just grab this simple thing here. But we're going to be talking about sound waves. What are they? And it's always kind of interesting to hear the different sounds. Obviously, it has something to do with the length of it. And so, like I said, without getting into the physics, hopefully that will pique some of your curiosity for when we ultimately do get started here. Some light and some optics stuff. I brought my laser pointers, and so I have 3 laser pointers here. Let me just maybe show you here on the whiteboard here. But this is a kind of a violet one. This is a green one, and this is a red one. And so it's kind of nice to work with all 3 of them. And a couple of fun things to show you is what would happen if I were to shine, and maybe I will start with the more interesting one. Here's the violet one, and I shine it through this, let's just say liquid for a moment. And hopefully you can see that the liquid actually detects and picks up that beam. But if I shine the green one through here, it barely sees it, if at all. And the red one, not at all. It's the violet one here that is quite interesting. In fact, since the green one will probably pick up best with the camera, so we could see the light, maybe I'll shine it this direction here. But if I put a little smoke in the air, and shine the laser beam, you might be able then to see the laser beam in the air and the light scattering from it. So again, kind of some fun things that I'll be demonstrating and we'll be explaining as we go along here. And maybe since I've taken so much, maybe I better just do the last two and call it quits here. Why don't I do one from magnetism and one from electricity? I've got the magnetism one right here, but one of the things we'll be talking about here is how and why an electric motor works. We call this the jumping wire one. And so if I go ahead and I have this big battery and a little switch, if I just tap this, watch what happens to that wire. So if I tap it, whoa. It kind of jumps. And we call this the jumping wire. But it's actually the start of the electric motor. You know, how does that electric motor work? And there's magnets and there's currents and they push, and in this case, they make it spin. And maybe just one more here, and I'll shut this down here and say, why don't we look at some electricity here? This is always kind of a fun one to do. And let me be a little bit careful here, because I'll put quite a bit of energy on this little capacitor, or maybe I should say big capacitor. But I'll start with, maybe I'll give myself a little more wire here. Tap two together. And let me put about 300 volts here on this. And so I'll turn this on and turn up the dial. And so what I'm doing is putting a bunch of positive charges over on this metal plate and negative ones over on the other plate. And so I'll slowly turn it up. And again, without too much of going into the physics, maybe I'll just put it at 300. What do you think, Ron, on camera? Oh, higher. Ron says higher. Okay, so let's go. Oh, 350?
Yeah.
350, okay. 350 looks like a good number here. Nice high number here. And so I'll go ahead and disconnect that. But one of the things we're going to learn is that positives and negatives attract each other. And so watch what happens when I take a metal rod and I put in contact with both the positive and the negative. You will definitely see the two come close together. And so maybe I'll start here touching the negative. As I bring it over, watch what eventually happens. Oh! It scares me every time. It's just a lot of power. All right, well, that was my way of saying this is what we're going to be doing. Okay, we're going to hopefully have fun. We're going to learn the science. We're going to do a bunch of little experiments here, and it'll be interesting to see how these play out on camera versus live. But that's what we have here for this semester. So that being said, let's go back to the syllabus and keep setting up the class here. But this will give you an idea then of what topics we're going to be doing and hopefully kind of the fun we're going to be having. The obvious ones I already mentioned, and I'll just point out again, was right here. This is your textbook, and I sent to you that in email, and then here's the lab manual, which I sent to you. Another big thing you're going to really care about is the grades. And so as we go through the semester here together, you're going to take 3 exams and then a final exam. And so your 3 exams together is 50% of your grade, and your final exam is 25% of your grade. Your labs will count as 15% of your grade, and is your homework 10% of your grade. And so as we continue on, I will go through these calculations, and particularly, remember I said June 1, we're going to have our first test. So that first test, then I'll go through these numbers again here. Now here's some guidelines as you do the homework, and like I said, homework is not due until June 1st. But I'm going to encourage you to do them as we move along. I'm only putting it June 1st because we're not in a regular setting. And that's going to give you some time to learn and me some time to learn. But here's how you're going to turn it in. And that's what that Canvas page was for. Oh, by the way, and I should have mentioned, when you turn it into Canvas, it's best done in a PDF. Canvas is set up for a PDF file. And so if you have a scanner, that is the easiest way, I suppose, to get a PDF. But also note that there's other ways of getting a PDF. If you print something, there usually is an option where it says select printer. You can say print to a file as a PDF. So that's a good one. And also, if you only have a cell phone, there's a lot of good apps out there. The one that a lot of my students used last semester was the CAM scanner. And you could just take the phone and go across the page. So you do the homework on pencil and paper, and then you just scan it. You either scan it with your phone, or if you have a scanner, you scan it that way. That's best. But I will say, since we're both learning, if the only thing you can do is take a picture of it and send it to me, which will come probably as a JPEG, that's fine too. And so I guess the bottom line is I'll take anything, but I'm going to request PDFs because they're just, the way Canvas is set up, work so much nicer. But again, I don't want to put too much of a burden on you, but if you can learn how to do a PDF, that would be ideal. All right, anyways, so this is what you're going to do. So you do the homework on pencil and paper and then scan it, like I said, with a traditional scanner or with your phone. And then you're going to turn it in Canvas. And so we'll keep talking more about that as we go along here. Let me go to the second page. The second page isn't too much new information. It just simply says this, that this is your homework assignment. And so chapter 1, which we're going to get started here today, and when I lecture on chapter 1, then I'm going to say, okay, go do those homework problems. And that's what I was showing you earlier, was that there would be a conceptual and an experimental side, and these are the problems. And so you can just follow that PDF I gave you of the homework, or you can look in the book, or you can look first here on the syllabus and go to the book here. And so these are just the chapters, and these are the problems that we'll do here in our summer school. All right, let me go down to the next page. This is the schedule. And so I have here a schedule made out. Now this schedule really kind of follows the in-class schedule. You are going to have much more freedom because we're not in a, what would they call, synchronized setting. You and I are not in the same place at the same time. So in a synchronized setting, I would have said this. On today, May 18th, Monday, we are going to do chapter 1 and get started with 2. Now I know we're not finishing 2 because you can see on Tuesday, we are scheduled to continue on with chapter 2. And then of course we would start 3, and then on Wednesday we would continue with 3 and then go to 4. And so that's how you want to be reading this. However, things are going to be, of course, a little different because we're doing this remotely now. And I would say here that probably best if, when you get this link, which, I'm filming now, and it's just a little bit after 12 right now. So by the time I finish recording the whole thing and uploading it, and I might even do some editing with the audio, because as I said, we're kind of struggling through with some poor quality audio sound until we get to our new equipment, which hopefully it will be tomorrow, but if not by Wednesday. So if you watched these on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, or even Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, it doesn't matter. But I'm just going to put the schedule up here as if we were on a regular in-class, face-to-face meeting here. So my goal here today is to make then 2 videos. The first one would be the first hour and 15 minutes. And if it was face-to-face, this is what we would do for the first hour and 15 minutes. Then we would take a little break, and then we would take another lecture for an hour and 15 minutes. And that would be our normal setting. And so that's still my goal here. I'm going to just pretend that you guys are out there in the chairs, and we're face-to-face, and I'll just go for an hour 15 and take a break. And so as I look up at the clock, I think we're getting close to an hour. But, and so we'll take our first break in about 15 minutes or so. All right? Maybe a little bit earlier, because I'm going to break here after we're done talking about the syllabus before we get real started with the material here. But let me just scan through this to point out here that we are in session for 6 weeks. And the class meets Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, although again, with the remote setting, you can actually do them any days you want. But I do want to point this out, that in the remote setting then, keep your eyes focused on test number 1, which is June 1st. It's chapters 1 through 6. And that's why these first 2 weeks, I'm going to say, are kind of open-ended. You can work at your own pace and get these all done. But on June 1st, we're all going to take a test together. And I'm going to set it up like it's in class. So I'm going to ask you to clear up your schedule for June 1st at 11 o'clock. And then I will put that on Canvas. And Canvas will then open the test. They call it unlock. So I'll load it there that Sunday night. But it'll be all locked up. And at 11 o'clock, you can then begin the test. And you will have your hour and 15 minutes. That's what we would have done in a class setting. And then I'll probably give you a little bit more. Maybe I'll go with an hour and a half. That sounds good. Because I want to give you a little bit of time to not only take the test, but then scan it and load it up on Canvas. And so in these next 2 weeks, we're going to practice loading things on Canvas. So by the time test day comes, that won't be an issue. And so your homework and your labs, you'll be loading on Canvas. And so I'm going to encourage you to load them onto Canvas and practice that for the next 2 weeks. Because on test day, it's more serious. It's a timed test. Okay? And I'll talk more about the test when we get there. But I just want to say then, so for the next 2 weeks, here's what we're going to do. We're going to have 3 days of lecture. Now remember, each day has 2 lectures. All right, so that's 6 lectures this week. And then next week, there's actually a holiday coming up on Monday. So Monday is Memorial Day. And so if we were meeting face-to-face, we wouldn't have had a lecture. So same thing, we won't have a lecture there. But then I will make 2 lectures on Tuesday and 2 lectures on Wednesday. And you can see that will finish up chapter 6 so that you'll finish it up and then you'll be ready to come in for the test. And so on June 1st, again, let me say it, June 1st, 11 o'clock, as if it was face-to-face, you're going to go to Canvas and you're going to take the test, okay? Now, I'm hoping all of you can do it face-to-face. If you do have some kind of issues that don't allow you to do it face-to-face, I can work that out with you also. Not face-to-face, but at that regular face-to-face time. So I'd like to keep the test at that regular one. The rest of it, doing the labs, doing the lecture, doing the homework, you can do that anytime you want. You can shoot me questions anytime you want, and I'll just kind of regularly check my email, and so if and I'll respond on late at night, early in the morning, or any day of the week. And so it's very asynchronous is the word we like to use. So with that in mind, also take a look at test number 2 and test number 3. I like to give the long weekend, if this was face-to-face, to get students a chance to study and get ready for test number 1. Same thing for test number 2. So we go 2 weeks on the test, 2 weeks on the test, 2 weeks, well, we can't go and then a test because we're done. So it's as much as we can, and then a test, and then a final exam, okay? And so you'll have 3 tests and a final exam. And so if you can, please look at your schedule and be available at 11 o'clock on Monday, June 1, on Monday, June 15, on Tuesday, looks like June 23, and then the final exam at 11 o'clock on June 24. And so, again, that's how we would have done it face-to-face. And so I'm going to encourage you and start there. And if there's any problems and things we have to adjust, so be it. That's, that's just part of this new process. And, hopefully we'll be back face-to-face by fall, hopefully. That's the hope, anyway. We'll see where this goes. But definitely for the summer, we're going to be in this remote setting. Now, one more page here on the syllabus. If I scroll down, here is a schedule of the labs we would be doing. Now, again, same thing that I just said for the schedule of the class. This schedule for the labs is really based upon how this class normally is done face-to-face in the summer. And so it says Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, but I'm going to make videos of them those days and send them out. So if you look here, for example, Monday, May 18th is today, and it says here no lab. So even in a face-to-face setting, all I would have done is introduce you to the lab, showing you the equipment, explain a few safety rules, give you the syllabus, go over all this stuff, and then let you go. So we wouldn't have done a lab in a face-to-face setting. And so we're still not going to do one, because we want to learn a little bit about motion here before we actually do the lab. So the very first lab is tomorrow. And so tomorrow, I will go into the lab with the video camera, and I will be your lab partner. I explained this on your email, that the labs are going to work this way. We're going to pretend that I and you are partners. And in a face-to-face setting, you would be sitting at the desk with your partner, and you would work together, and you would, one person would do the little bit of work, another person would record down the data, and maybe you would switch. So in this case, I'm going to be doing all the work, and you're going to be writing down all the data. And so that's how we're going to work it. And so you're going to just think of me as being your lab partner. And so I'm going to hook up the equipment, and again, hopefully I'll have a lapel mic, and you'll be watching the equipment and the video. And then once I collect all the data, I'll kind of open the lab manual and say, okay, now it's your job to write this all down. This will be your raw data. And then you have to do all these calculations. And I'll show you the calculations, and there'll be some questions you have to answer. And then eventually it'll be some graphs. And so you'll have like 4 or 5 pages from the lab manual. And then you'll scan that and turn that in here. And so hopefully that makes sense from my discussion earlier about how you turn things in. It's going to be through that canvas. Okay, and so that's the setup of the class. And if you look here, you'll see our labs we're going to do. And let's see, we don't have one this Monday. We also do not have one on the holiday. And we don't have one the very last day. The very last day is just take the final exam. But other than that, there's a lab each day. But I'll say it again for you guys, because we're in a remote setting, you don't really have to do it on the designated day. The designated day is the day that I will do it and make the video. And so again, by the time I record it and then post it, it'll be more towards the evening. And so you could do it that evening, or you could do it the next day, or even on the days that would be Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, that wouldn't be available to do the labs in a normal setting. So like I said, that's probably the good thing. There are some good things about this remote setting, and that's one of them. The bad thing is just you know, me looking at you guys going, okay, everybody gets it or not. And usually about this time, now that I'm done with this, I kind of scan the room and say, all right, everybody, did that make sense? And, you know, maybe a few people have questions, and I suspect then you guys still have a few questions about maybe about Canvas, maybe about email, maybe about due dates. And so let me encourage you right now, send me an email, okay? Sadly, I can't, you know, immediately answer it, but send me an email. And that's why, again, I'll say there is nothing magically due tomorrow. If this was a face-to-face, that would be different. I'd say, okay, now, you're going to have homework due tomorrow here, and we're going to come in and ask questions. But to give us some time to figure out, both me figuring out how to do the video stuff and you figuring out how to do it and then upload it. But I would encourage you, as far as doing it, do it the old-fashioned way. Do it with pencil and paper. Do your homework on pencil and paper, and then figure out how you're going to scan it. And again, get one of those apps for your phone if you don't have a scanner. I think that's the best way. And if you can't do that, I'm pretty sure you know how to take a picture. So just take out your phone, and if your homework is 2 pages, 3 pages, 4 pages, just take 3, 4 pages or pictures of them and upload it in a JPEG. That's fine. Okay, but again, I prefer the PDF because it works a little bit better. All right. Well, as I look around the room, I don't see any hands. So why don't I say this? Let's actually get started with the class. Let's actually start chapter 1, but this will be a good time to take our 15-minute break here. And so I've been talking for, what, hour, 7 minutes, if I got it about right. And it's a little bit early from our 15, but it is a really good place to stop and take our break. So let's cut this off, and then we'll come back.